In 2004, my favorite season of Power Rangers ever made was put on television. Whether it was seen on ABC Kids, ABC Family, Toon Disney, Jetix, or wherever else it was available at the time, Dino Thunder was one of the shows that I absolutely loved watching. And there was a second ever season of Power Rangers that I've seen. So that being said, it was a great way for me to enjoy the Power Rangers franchise, as well as to understand, with a very surprising episode, the history of the Power Rangers franchise as we know of. Honestly, I don't think Dino Thunder would be good enough for a JustUs Podcast segment, simply because there's so much to talk about compared to most of the modern day PR seasons. So in this case, I'm going to be revisiting Dino Thunder now that the episodes are up on YouTube, and it'll be much easier for me to watch the episodes from there. So let's dive into Day of the Dino Part 1 and 2. Day of the Dino starts off with Dr. Oliver escaping an island as it starts to explode, and he's carrying with him very secret sorts of artifacts with him, which turn out to be the Dino Gems as we discover later on. Generally speaking, it gives us a massive introduction, showing off not just the legendary Ranger that the characters and presumably the audience that's new to the series at the time doesn't know about. The character escapes, and we see Dr. Oliver in his own little high school as a teacher, which, looking back now, it definitely makes sense because the character has been through a lot, so having Tommy Oliver be a science teacher is good for him to have a much more quiet life. At Reefside High, we also get to be introduced to the likes of Elsa, who is actually a principal this time around instead of being her villain, as we discover. And we also get to witness the three teens that turn out to be our Rangers. Carter McKnight, soccer player, Ethan James, our computer hacker, and Kira Ford, our musician. They all get into detention because they've broken one rule that the principal is very strict about. And of course, Dr. Oliver shows up and says, hey, I got something for you. If you do very well on some sort of prehistoric project, then you won't have to worry about detention. So they could take him to his own dino lab. And while they look around, looking for some sort of artifact or some sort of dinosaur-themed aspect that can help them get out of detention, Dr. Oliver instead realizes the fact that his lab is under some sort of renovation, which mentions Anton Mercer. The dinosaur that was available at the dinosaur that was displayed around the lab comes to life, chases after Dr. O, and turns out to have been some sort of machine, likely as a trap to get rid of him once and for all. As we discover, it's merely a bit of revenge against Dr. Oliver after what happened. The Rangers get the gems after witnessing a lab that turns out to later on be owned by Dr. Oliver. They escape. They get chased after by the Tyranno-drones after Mesogog realizes that the drones... They get the gems. Mesogog's lair awakens. Mesogog tells the Tyranno-drones to go after the trio. The trio initially struggle, but they manage to use the most out of their powers, winning at the end and meeting up with Dr. Oliver. Connor and Ethan look for Dr. O. Dr. O tells them that they're going to help each other out, looking for Kira. Kira escapes from the evil lair of Mesogog, meeting up with Elsa, as well as Mesogog's own other ally, Zeltrax. She teleports, she lands onto the hood, calling herself a hood ornament in the process, and they fight against some of the Tyranno-drones, revealing their powers to Dr. Oliver, and Zeltrax, to the dismay of the villain, escapes with the remaining Tyranno-drones. They know for a fact that they're going to be in a lot of new changes in their lives, especially now for the fact that Mesogog, telling Zeltrax not only bring out the Biozords, but to also bring out his own ship, goes to downtown and causes destruction over there. Really, downtown itself is pretty much just Abba Ranger footage. It has a lot of kanji and Japanese civilians instead of, like the more North American or New Zealand actors that would make more sense for Downtown Reefside. But anyways, the trio of teenagers decide, okay, this is going to be serious trouble. They pretty much get a state of emergency in the high school. But Connor, Ethan, and Kira decide that they're going to have to go with Dr. Oliver. And even though they're not chosen to be Rangers, and even though they chose not to be Power Rangers, they were chosen by fate, as the gems bonded to them, and now they must become the Power Rangers. They meet up with Zeltrax, they morph into the Ranger form for the first time ever, take him down as well as the Tyranno-drones. uses the ARX blaster on him, and Zeltrax brings in his own ship, as well as the Biozords. The Biozords are pretty much causing destruction around the area, so the Rangers must tame them, turning the 3 Zords from their green, almost forest-like deco, into their proper Ranger colors. Obviously, Tyrannosaurus becomes red, Triceratops becomes blue, Tyrannosaur becomes yellow. They form the Thundersaurus Megazord. They initially struggle against Zeltrax's ship, but they manage to win at the end of the day, and it's pretty much more of a fact that they need to get to this stuff as quickly as possible and learn more of the basics and beyond the basics afterwards. I think most of the time we usually expect Power Rangers to rush through everything, especially its Japanese counterpart Super Sentai, where they just rush through everything. They gotta show off all the toys, you gotta show off like all the character development later, and people pretty much write it off, whereas if PR does it, it's sort of like criticized and shat on constantly. Like something like Samurai and Megaforce, as well as especially MMPR, definitely deserve all the sort of heat, but I think Dino Thunder at least justifies itself by having a 2-part story, as well as having the characters understand that they're in for a massive change in their lives, and even telling them that they're going to have to learn all this sort of stuff. The main focus is for them to just take on the bad guys. And of course we get to see Mesogog punish poor Zeltrax and Elsa, while the trio of Rangers get their own bracelets and are told that this is going to be a different sort of change on their lives, as mentioned earlier, that they're going to definitely have to go up against the villains once again. Because it's not over yet, as the end music tune implies. So, yeah, Dino Thunder was definitely a good start when it comes to Day of the Dino. And, you know, a lot of people nowadays are kind of spoiled by the likes of cast build-ups and slow-paced Megazord reveals, as well as Easter eggs, as we got with Beast Morphers and Dino Charge. Or Easter eggs in the case of Beast Morphers and Dino Fury. But I think Dino Thunder, as well as SPD, another season that I know has a 2-parter at the core of my memory, as robotic as that sounded, like they know for a fact that using a 2-parter for the pilot is good. It helps us better understand what the characters are like without us having to constantly wait for cast build-ups, as well as having to have us wait for some sort of character development, as the main priority for them would be to make toy sales. Now, the only real thing that I don't really like about Day of the Dino is just looking back now, the Zord footage when the Biozords first appeared in what's supposed to be Downtown Reefside. It's actually just the Alba Ranger footage. It's clearly got a lot of Japanese kanji, as mentioned, and it definitely looked pretty weird, if you ask me. Definitely obvious. There are much better shots to go for. But, like, that's honestly the only problem I have with the episode. But otherwise, it's a very good episode. I love seeing the characters. I love seeing the fact that, you know, Connor is, like, not really a goody two-shoe. I like that Ethan is, like, very smart, but he's not a dork. He doesn't say any stupid crap like molecular transformation or anything that would scream Dick Entertainment 1990s family friendly. Like, sure, this is Power Rangers, this is a kids show, but Dino Thunder is not your ordinary kids show. Like, okay, writing level wise, it might not be on the same level as something overrated like Batman the Animated Series, but it is a lot more natural, a lot more organic with its writing compared to what we got with Ninja Steel or Beast Morphers even, where the writing is just very basic, it's very vanilla. You know, it's always constantly rubbing in the face that we can't really say anything that would be kind of with personality. Like, Ethan himself, as I said, is a smart guy, but he's not super dorky. Like, he sounds like how a normal person would talk. And Kira even, like, she's not some sort of, like, annoying dumb blonde. I mean, she's a dirty blonde, which is even better. Like, she doesn't really seem to have much of an interest in being with the other guys, but doesn't belittle them in the same way people would say when they look at someone that would automatically make him go, yes, queen, or whatever. But I like Kira a lot. I like Connor. I love Ethan. Like, those three are great to watch once again. Especially after the fact that I was waiting for some Dino Thunder content that was not some sort of clip compilation, but more importantly, wasn't just the Beast Morphers Great Connection thumbnail that had the red Dino Thunder Ranger suit, but not Connor McKnight's actor, James Napier. Like, cause, look, I like Beast Morphers. I'm not gonna act like it's 100% awful season as some PR fans are going to be like nowadays just because Dino Fury has more references or whatever. But I hate how they handle Dino Thunder's characters. Like, Connor himself is less... I don't think you guys have seen the last of him. It is more natural. He's a lot more organic. He feels like a proper character. He feels like a proper teen in terms of portrayal, in terms of how he sounds. He's a jock. I mean, sure, the character's gotten older in 2020 or 2019, wherever Beast Morphers episode Great Connection was supposed to take place, but it's like, come on now. You made him sound like a generic PR voice, and it's just kind of funny how that turned out. But yeah, I was definitely happy to go back and rewatch this episode, especially now that it's on the official YouTube channel, which is definitely a plus. Like, I was super worried of having to pay for a constant amount of money on the Dino Thunder, SPD, and other season episodes that I like, because while I would like to own, say, a DVD of MMPR, I'm not going to go super crazy for it because MMPR is not a season that I like as much. Dino Thunder, however, is a season that I absolutely love, and I'm worried about having to look for Big Lots or wherever DVDs are sold, because it's not really that easy. Like, there's bargain bins that I would have to dig deep into or have to dig through without trying to make too much of a mess at a Walmart. So, having the episodes on YouTube does mean that I no longer really need to own a physical copy of the season that I like as much as I'd want to, but at the very least it does save me from a problem, as well as from another problem, that being Netflix taking it down, because apparently Hasbro or Netflix just wants to leave an MMPR 2010 as well as Ninja Steel or whatever and Beast Morphers, which is pretty sucky if you ask me. But I gotta say this, in spite of the weird Downtown Reefside, not really Downtown Reefside footage that's used from Alba Ranger, and in spite of some of the crappy advertisements that I'd have to watch while revisiting this episode, because YouTube Kids definitely wants to put in some ads that you're going to have some trouble skipping unless you have the miracle of being able to report an ad. Even then, that's not really possible because they think kids aren't going to be annoyed about it. But beyond these issues, as minor as they are, like Dino Thunder itself is a great season to revisit, and Day of the Dino is a great pilot to go back to, and it makes me super excited to rewatch every other episode because there is no way I'm going to watch MMPR 2010. I hate the revisions, and I'm not really that big of a fan of MMPR as it is. And like you could say, okay, Dino Charge is decent, but I'm not really that excited to rewatch Dino Charge just yet. And Ninja Steel, I don't know if they have full episodes or not, and the Beast Morphers, the same, I don't really know. And as much as I like to watch Beast Morphers again, like I'm not super obsessed with or waiting for uploads as much as I would be with Dino Thunder. And interestingly, like they have the other episodes ready for upload, or in terms of premiere rather, but one of them, Legacy of Power, is actually showing the Thunder Rangers as well as Cam, who they've gone hostage. Now that makes me hope that we get to see other seasons. I mean, obviously Dino Thunder is there just because Mighty Morphin is already on this channel. So is Dino Charge. I think I think it's on Power Rangers Kids, the other Power Rangers channel, because that's totally not going to confuse your average PR fan that's young on YouTube. And Dino Fury is on television right now, so why not have Dino Thunder is what Hasbro probably said. But that being said, I just hope we get to see more PR, because I'd love to see, in space through RPM once again, without having to worry about reruns on Nicktoons or whatever they have, as well as looking for the episodes on DVD, because it's not that easy, let me tell you that. So yeah, I'm definitely excited to revisit Dino Thunder, especially since there's so much more to talk about than with the other season. Being like, when I look at Dino Fury, the only more significant scenes are just Izzy being like a decent character, Although people only give a crap about her just because she took off her skirt. And the most recent Dino Fury episode apparently has Void Knight reveal that he has a wife. Nora Fries, perhaps? Maybe Void Knight is Mr. Freeze from Batman? We'll see. But I just think that those are more significant parts, whereas Dino Thunder has a lot more to talk about. And a lot more stuff to remember beyond just the Easter eggs. I mean, okay, sure, to the most recent episode's credit, the Dino Gems were referenced by the Morphin Masters because they created everything. But that's just one little thing that stood out to me from the most recent episode, as well as other few smaller things. Whereas Dino Thunder itself has a lot more to talk about, and much as I hate to be the kind of person that says, "Now back to my day," I just think that PR seasons aren't as good as they used to be, and I'm not a 90s baby, because I think MPR sucks nowadays because there's better stuff that came after it. But I just think what we get nowadays just isn't as good as what we used to have back then. But that does it for today's episode. I'll be sure to see you next time when we revisit To Wave Goodbye, the third episode of Power Rangers Dino Thunder. Take care, everyone!